Hello everyone and welcome back to the Self-Care Backpack YouTube channel. My name is Jem and we're in a new place. We're now in my bedroom rather than my living room. I also have a new mic, which I'm hoping means I'm less echoey this time. I recorded with an external mic last video, but I don't have an arm for it, so it was kind of far apart. So I've got one of these because I don't really have a setup yet because this flat is quite small. But you don't care about any of that. The point is, I've had some feedback. I take up more of the frame now. I'm not so far away from you, and I have a mic, so I hopefully sound better, look better, all amazing. The lights are still present. This time joined by a candle. I love these candles, by the way. Those YouTubers do this, but indulge me for a few seconds. This candle is from a local British candle maker who I will link to in the description. All her candles are vegan and they are lovely and smell delicious and have a crystal at the bottom, so when you finished it you get a lovely jar and a crystal. And she does a lot with rose, and all the rose stuff comes from her own garden. Today we're going to talk about self-care, like what self-care is to me fundamentally, and kind of what self-care, the core of self-care that kind of goes through everything that Self-Care Backpack is, all the resources, all the tools, how I do self-care myself, and how all that feeds in. Because there is kind of a fundamental core to the self-care that I talk about, and I want to talk about that. But first, I want to do my disclaimer, because, as I said, my name is Jem, and I am not a mental health professional at all. I am someone who has mental health issues. I've got a couple of mental health diagnoses, anxiety and complex PTSD. I've been in therapy, I'm on medications, I'm still in therapy. But yeah, so therapy, meds, and everything I share are things that I have learnt and use myself. All the resources I share are either tools that I use myself or are based on tools that I use myself, and other people told me they found helpful as well. Your health is absolutely paramount. If anything I say doesn't track or doesn't feel safe, then do not do it. I am a lady talking to her iPad. Take all my advice with that in mind. If you're looking for more like professional resources, I have a page on the Self-Care Backpack website that is linked in the descriptions. I have a few. So most of the resources there at the moment are UK, US and Ireland. I have a couple from Spain that I'm going to add to it. Thank you to my friend Antonella. If you're watching, thank you for helping me with that. That is really amazing. If there are any resources that I've missed, or if you have some in a different language that you could provide, that would be amazing, and I'll put them on the website and I will link to you or credit you if you wish. If not, it can be anonymous, whatever you want. I'm just grateful either way. So, disclaimer over. Let's get into the meat of it, shall we? Okay, so self-care as like a concept or a term is accredited to Audre Lorde, who said, "Caring for myself is not self-indulgence. It is self-preservation, and that is an act of political warfare." So like, self-care originally was this kind of political radical act, right? The idea of looking after yourself for no other reason other than looking after yourself, especially in the face of discrimination. Audre Lorde she described herself as black, lesbian, mother, warrior, poet. So she was in a couple of demographics that were and continue to be marginalised and discriminated against. And so especially if you're in one of those kind of demographics, the idea of looking after yourself in the face of all this stuff from the outside world is quite radical and is a massively political caring act, right? And so yeah, self-care comes to these really like fundamental roots and these kind of radical roots, and then it was kind of co-opted and capitalised upon. And for a while there, self-care was mostly like, if you googled self-care and looked at the images, it was all like white women in like fluffy bath towels or surrounded by candles or fairy lights, and that was kind of it. There wasn't anything like the fundamental bits of actually looking after yourself and interrogating is the wrong word, but listening to and figuring out what you're feeling and why you're feeling it. And to me, like, even now when we're getting a little bit, self-care is kind of returning back to its like fundamental roots a little bit and its radical roots, there's still a bit of it like, so you get told to like yoga, mindfulness and meditation and exercise and all that kind of stuff, and those are all absolutely great things for self-care, as I'm going to go into, but that is often the end of the story, and for me that's like the first step in self-care. Let me explain what I mean. So step one for self-care for me is all about listening, and so everything that I do, whether it's yoga or mindfulness, or even like the more fundamental looking after yourself, like making sure you've got clean clothes or making sure that your house is clean and nice, all of these for me is to provide myself with the time and space to listen to myself, my emotions and what they're telling me and how they're affecting me. Because I said before, emotions are signposts, right? They may be pointing to something that's false, but they are there to tell you something. They are messengers. And the only way to kind of figure out what they're saying and if it's worth listening to is to listen to them in the first place, right? And so for me, like even yoga is really good for me, and I do not do it often enough because I also have balance issues. I've got weak ankles, so they're wobbly. So balance can be something that I have to think about. So yoga is great because my kind of active mind is thinking about not falling flat on my face or dislocating an ankle. And because it's kind of focused on that, but that's not taking up all of my energy. So it's like diverting but not overwhelming. My like subconscious can kind of filter up and be like, hey, feelings over here. And that's really useful. And so I find that kind of like active self-care is something that I feel much better, I do much better with, whether that's taking a walk, so I have to kind of be aware of my surroundings because I have to cross roads and all that jazz. It means that, again, my quiet feeling part of my brain can filter to the top. And when I say quiet, I don't necessarily mean that my feelings are always quiet, because I mean I have anxiety. My brain is often very loud and frightened or frightening. It means that I guess my active part of my brain is very used to like shutting it down, and so I need that to not happen in order for my feelings to come out fully. You can also do this, so mindfulness can be good, it can be really bad. If mindfulness makes you feel worse, do not do mindfulness. The meditation part anyway, but you can do all sort of things mindfully, right? And the idea is that you kind of pay attention to what you're doing, and that can let your brain filter up. It's the same kind of concept as shower thoughts, when you're in the shower and you either have this kind of like insight into a problem that you're having, or these really weird thoughts that you wouldn't normally have kind of filter up. And that is because, for the most part, when you're in the shower, you can only shower, and it's not something that really takes up a huge amount of your brain space, right? So again, you're doing something, you can't do anything else, so it's time for your brain to it can think about these things. It's got some time and space to do stuff, so it's gonna throw feelings at you, because that's how brains work, right? So step one is listening, and for me, like yoga and meditation and all that kind of self-care activities filter into that, but that is only step one. The next step two, is about sitting with my feelings, and that can be really difficult. I still find it hard sometimes to sit with my feelings and acknowledge them, because I don't want to, especially if they're ones that I don't think I can fix, which I'll talk about in a bit. But it's sitting there and dealing with these feelings, and sometimes these feelings aren't good ones, right? There can be things that you really don't want to think about or don't want to deal with, because when you start thinking about one thing, it's just going to open up like a Pandora's box of emotions and things that you're maybe not happy with, or things that are weighing on your mind, all this kind of stuff. So it can be really hard to do that, especially if you're worried if they're going to be overwhelming, because sometimes feelings are overwhelming, and sometimes the reason your brain's batting them away is because it's trying to protect you from these overwhelming feelings, which is another reason why I always preach safety in these things. If you're concerned that doing this will overwhelm you and have a negative effect, then make sure that you have some things in place. Either do this kind of thing with a professional, or have a safety plan, so it's someone you can call to come and help you, or to get you if you need to, or can talk you down from things. That kind of thing can be really useful if you're scared, because you might not need it, but it's easier to do things if you've got those safety nets in place, you know? So yes, step 2, sitting and listening. Not talking, not talking about your feelings necessarily, or talking to your feelings and trying to reason them out of existence or anything like that. Just sitting and listening to what's being said to you. Then it's kind of learning what they're saying and how they're saying it. So one of the ways that I deal with feelings that I'm worried are going to be overwhelming, or if I know there's nothing I can do to fix the anxiety, the one things I do to help with that is I think about how they're affecting me physically. That's how I get kind of space from the immediacy of my feelings. So I'm sitting and I'm listening, and I can be like, okay, I'm anxious, or I think I'm anxious. And my anxiety is, for me, it usually causes my stomach to churn and I'll feel a bit sick. It can also cause me to clench my jaw, and I am a leg juggler as well. And there's definitely been times, not so much recently, I've got a bit better at this, at noticing these things, but back a few years ago, before I really started engaging with my feelings and with therapy, I would often realise that I've been jiggling my leg for so long that my calves hurt, because I'd just been constantly jiggling my leg and I hadn't realised. And then I kind of came to and was like, oh no, my leg now really hurts, I've got to stretch this out and stuff. So it's things like that. It's kind of seeing how it can be affecting you physically and how you're coping physically, like coping mechanisms. If you're all tense and stuff, that's because you feel tense, and you're kind of waiting for something to happen, so you're tensed up. And sometimes actually engaging with fixing those things can kind of distract you from trying to fix the other feelings that you've got. So that's kind of, relaxing your shoulders, opening and shutting your jaw a few times to try and loosen that up, stop jiggling your leg for a bit, all that kind of stuff. And the thing is, you can and possibly will go straight back to them, and that's fine. It's just about disrupting those pathways a little bit and acknowledging that your feelings are leading to this physically, and kind of connecting those dots. You know, I have this headache because I am tense, or I have this headache because my brain has been whirring for hours and it's leading to this headache, right? It can be kind of that thing of, I am feeling this physically because I am feeling this mentally. And sometimes that disconnect can be real, like there can be a real disconnect between these two things. And then even learning just to connect those dots can be useful, because sometimes, and again, it's different for everyone depending on how your brain works, sometimes the physical side effects can come before you realise what you're feeling mentally, right? There's a story that I was told where there was a team working, and it was kind of like crunch time, so they're all working really hard, they were under some stress, and one team member had a habit of having a snack at the same time every day. And they went a couple of days without having a snack. And one of their co-workers said, "You've not had your snack for the past couple of days, what's going on?" And it was then that they realised that they were so stressed that they weren't hungry, but they hadn't noticed, because they'd been so lost in their work, that they hadn't noticed that the stress was making them not want to eat the way they normally would in their normal eating patterns. I took someone else saying, "Hang on, something's changed, what's going on? Are you okay?" to connect those dots up. Because that's how it goes, right? Sometimes you can be so in a mind space or in a physical space that you don't really connect those dots. So for me, learning to connect those dots is super useful and can tell you things about how you're feeling and how you react to things. So you're sitting in a place, metaphorically or actually sitting, however you decide to try and engage with these feelings. You've listened to your body, you've kind of connected some dots. Then what do you do? For me, it's about accepting that I'm feeling this way. It is acknowledging, either saying maybe out loud or writing it down, or just saying it internally, I am feeling this way. it is affecting me in these ways. And then breathing. There are sometimes things you can do to help, whether that's things to like physically help you, like stop clenching your shoulders, like tensing your shoulders for a bit, or you drink some water to try and ease the headache a bit, that kind of thing. There could be things that you can do that help the overall problem, like if you know that you need to face this situation that you're in, or you need to set some boundaries or something, you can maybe work towards that. But it could be that you can't do anything of that. And that is a real kind of weird line to walk. So for me, I have anxiety that can be can lead to some obsessive thoughts and some really intrusive thoughts. And I know from working with my therapist and from my own experience that if I feed my anxiety, it just gets bigger. So if I'm anxious, say that I've annoyed someone, an interaction went a bit weird and it wasn't what I expected, and now I'm concerned that I've annoyed them. Now I know that what my brain wants to do is for me to say, have I annoyed you? And then they'll go, no, it's fine. I'll be like, no, but really, you can tell me, right? You'd tell me if you'd tell me, right? You'd tell me if I annoyed you, yeah? Because I need to know, and on and on and on. And then I would have annoyed them by being so needy. And then they're annoyed, and then I'm more anxious, and the whole cycle feeds itself, right? And so it's knowing that kind of line between, hey, everything okay, and needing them almost to fix your anxiety, or needing to do something to fix your anxiety that may not make sense, but it's what your anxiety needs in the moment. And doing those things means that you just make it worse. And so the next time something goes weird, the only way I know to fix it is to ask and be needy at them. And that's not healthy. That's not healthy for me. I shouldn't necessarily need that kind of reassurance from every single interaction that doesn't go exactly how I've planned it in my brain. Because that's, I should be able to kind of, it's kind of learning self-soothing almost, and learning to kind of engage with your anxiety and talk yourself down instead of needing other people to talk you down. And that's really hard. It is absolutely a fine line to walk. I still fail every now and then, even though I kind of know what I'm doing. Sometimes the instinct brain kicks in and I instantly do something, and then I go, oh, I shouldn't have done that, because now my anxiety thinks that's a good thing to do. Because this thing's tiring, right? So I've waffled a bit, but I hope that makes sense. And yeah, I'm hoping it's not just me at this point that does stuff like that and thinks like that. But kind of that's how I do self-care, basically. And everything else is kind of like the decoration on the cake of self-care that I have. Like the main bulk of the stuff is this sitting and listening and dealing with my feelings and kind of engaging and learning to accept things, up to a point, and breathing through them. The breath is really powerful. Do not underestimate the power of breathing. There is a reason that we breathe heavily when we're in pain. There's a reason that we take a deep breath before doing something that scares us. Like, anchor yourself to your breath if you need to. Practice breathing. There's some gifs you can breathe along with as well. I say gifs, not gifs. I can't say gifs. But those gifs can be really helpful. That kind of visual thing to help you control your breathing. Anchor to your breath, because it's always there. It's always going to be with you. And try to find strength in having that kind of in and out control of yourself. That was really rambly, but that's essentially self-care. I hope this made sense and you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe and like and comment and all the other things that you're meant to say on YouTube. But no, I really do enjoy seeing what people think of my stuff. I really enjoy getting feedback, so anything at all, please do reach out to me. There are links both in the description and on the screen at the end to Self-Care Backpack. You can email me. We are at Care Backpack on Twitter and Instagram. You can message us there as well. I say us, it's me. Self-Care Backpack this is the only person who does Self-Care Backpack, so you can message me at those things. And I will be back in 2 weeks with another video. If you have any suggestions or anything you really want me to talk about, please tell me. I have tons of ideas, but I'm always open to suggestions. And take care, be kind to yourself, and I'll see you later. Bye.